Hello, my name is Dan Skipbound, and this is the Top 5 Weekly, where myself and my guests discuss the topic. It could be a movie, it could be a genre, it could be an actor, it could be an actress, it could be a director, it might even be a cinematographer. Who knows? Or a composer. You never know. We might get there someday. But on this episode, we are going to be talking about the best movies of 2019. I wanted to wait a few weeks to let folks see some more movies. I tend to see all the movies pretty early, and I still missed a couple, and I had to wait, and I had to see near the end of the month of January. So I know how hard it is to see all the movies, and so I decided let's wait till the end of the month, and we'll do this episode that way. We'll let these guys can talk about some of the movies that I saw maybe a month ago or 2 months ago, but they didn't get a chance to see until this month. So now we are all set, and I never do this show alone. I have two very special guests, two really good guys, and I know they're going to have some great lists to talk about the best of 2019, and that is welcome back, Mr. Kirk, the consigliere Kolakowski, and first time, hopefully not the last time, Mr. Andrew James Barr. Two really good guys, two guys that I know a lot about movies. Kirk, welcome back.
Thanks for having me back, Dan. I'm excited. It's going to be a fun topic. It's been a good year.
Yeah, it has. It really has. And Andrew, I finally got you on here.
You finally got me. Thanks for having me on, Dan. This is going to be fun. There were some changes to my list just recently after rewatching something, so this will be interesting. This will be fun.
All right, so normally what we do is we go over our honorable mentions at the end of the show, but because this is the Top 5 Weekly, we're only going to talk about 5 movies. So in honor of doing that, we're going to let the guys give their 5 honorable mentions, basically their 10 through 6. That way they can still get it in their top 10 list on the show, and we're not cutting them off doing their whole top 10 list. So, Kirk, take it away, your 10 through 6.
Yeah, I'll go over these real quick because I'm sure at least a few of these are going to be in your guys' top 5. So we'll probably talk about them a little more then. But my number 10 was Knives Out. My number 9 was The Lighthouse. My number 8 was The Irishman. My number 7 was a movie I was really surprised how much I enjoyed. It was The Two Popes. And my number 6 was Parasite.
All right. Very good 10 through 6, I might say. And Andrew, what's your 10 through 6?
All right, so my number 10 is Booksmart. My number 9 is Jojo Rabbit. My number 8 is A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. My number 7 is a movie that I'm really glad that I enjoy. Oh, well, I'll be back. My number 7 is Uncut Gems. And my number 6 is Rocket Man.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'll be right back. I'm just going to hop off and hop back on. Sorry,
all right,
guys.
That's fine. And while he does that, while Andrew does that, I will do my 10 through 6. Blinded by the Light. Wow, I love that movie. Bombshell is Blinded by the Light was number 10. Bombshell is number 9. Ford versus Ferrari at number 8. Number 7, Rocket Man. Number 6, Little Women. And something's going on with Andrew here. We're trying to get Andrew in here. I think he tried to come back, but it's not letting him come back. Yeah, well, Andrew, it's not letting me put you back in. It's not. Oh, there you are. Okay, there you are.
Hey, we're just gonna do this with my audio. Oh well.
All right, well, that's fine, I guess. All right, so let's get into this.
I don't think you stopped at 6, Dan. What was your 5?
No, I'm not going to do. I don't give away my 5.
Oh yeah, we're stopping. Okay, yeah, okay. All right.
Okay. At 6.
Okay.
Come on, Kirk. This is my first time, and I know this stuff.
All right, Kirk. Let's do your number 5.
Okay, and we're doing it where if somebody else has it, we'll talk about it when we get to their list.
We'll talk about
it. All right, my number 5 is Dr. Sleep.
I do not have Dr. Sleep. Do you, Andrew?
Nope.
All right, go ahead. Talk about Dr. Sleep, Kirk.
All right, yeah, The Shining is a very personal movie for me. I know I've talked about Andrew's heard these stories. When I was a kid, my parents worked shift work, and I'm the youngest of 4. And we had just gotten, it was the early days of cable. We just got cable. So I basically watched what my older siblings wanted to watch. And, so when I was, 4 or 5 years old, I was watching The Shining. And so that was like, as weird as it sounds, that was a family movie for us. I remember when I was a kid, at 5 years old, quote, Wendy, Darlene, light of my life. And so that was something that always like a real, connection for us in a weird way. And I was really excited for Dr. Sleep, and as I got older, I learned more about the movie, more about Kubrick and and then I read the novel and I learned about the difference, how, Stephen King wasn't happy with the movie and how different it was from the book. And I enjoyed both stories. And I knew the challenge of this movie was going to be being a sequel to both the book and the movie. And I thought that would hurt it. And it actually did a great job of bringing those two things together. It's a sequel to both stories, and it does, justice to both stories. And what really impacted me was the scene where Danny's at the AA meeting getting his chip, and he's talking about his dad, how his dad tried, and like I said again, personally for me, dealing with having a parent who struggled with addiction, I got really emotional for that scene, and just my connection to that movie and that character, that was kind of like a redemption for him, and and a redemption for that movie when it came to like I said, its connection to the book. And I love that so much. I got to watch it with my older sisters. They were there in the theater with me. So it kind of came full circle. So again, it's a very personal choice for me. But I think it's a great movie. It's a great story. And the third act gets a little fan servicey, especially the very end. It's kind of a little hard to watch, and that's why it did end up lower on my list. And on rewatches, it may actually move spaces up because like I said, that it gets a little wonky at the end there. But still, for me, it was still a great movie. So yeah, I wanted to put that on, recognize that and have it at my number 5.
Yeah, I was really fascinated by the fact that a lot of folks liked Dr. Sleep, and I wasn't the biggest fan of Dr. Sleep, but I really applaud for people to see something in it that I didn't see. Andrew, you got any thoughts on Dr. Sleep real quick?
Honestly, this came out during a time where I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off. So I had to be really picky about the movies I saw around this time, and I just haven't gotten to see it yet.
Yeah. All right. So that was Kirk's number 5. Andrew, what is your number 5?
So my number 5 is Marriage Story.
All right. Hold on there. We're going to hold on there, Andrew. I apologize for that.
Yeah, you're good.
All right. So my number 5 is, and I'm sure it was going to be a hold on here too. My number 5 is Parasite.
Hold.
All right. So we're going back to Kirk.
Okay. This might be another one. My number 4 is Jojo Rabbit.
I don't have Jojo Rabbit in my top 5.
That was my number 9.
Andrew had it 10. Yeah. This is another one. This is just a great movie. It really walked that line. I mean, it was a bold movie to make and a bold story to tell and a bold way to tell it. And Taika Waititi just did a great job. Did a great job in the part of Hitler. The whole cast is fantastic. I just loved it. It's funny. It's hard. It's scary at times. It just hits all the beats that it needs to, and I'm just I was just blown away by it. Like it's one of those things where you go to the movies. Guys like us go to the movies a lot. And you don't see a lot of new stuff. It's really hard to see new things. And this movie was something that nothing I'd ever seen before. So I just had and again, just how poignant it is with the time we're living in, just kind of added to it. But even with that, it was just a really good movie.
No, you hit the nail on the head right there, Kirk, when you said it's so poignant with the time that we're living in today, because there's no comparison between somebody that's in this movie and somebody that's alive today. And there's a lot of similarities and personalities and whatnot. This movie balances so many great lines of laughter, yet crying and dramatic. And there's one of the most, I would argue, one of the most shocking scenes you'll see in any movie all year long in 2019 is in this movie.
Yeah.
You don't see it coming. It hits you like a punch in the face. You're like, What the heck did I just see? But the laughter, the crying, the dramatic, it's how Taika Waititi was able to balance all of that. It's a masterful job. It was a masterful job. Andrew, what do you got to say?
I really like this movie a lot. The only reason it didn't make my top 5 is because sometimes, while it did do a really good job with its balance, sometimes there was like a little bit of whiplash for me tonally. Also, there were just a few things that held it back for me. Rebel Wilson. But no, otherwise, I really do enjoy this movie a whole lot. It's a great job. And the scene where you get introduced to Stephen Merchant's character that was intense. So this is a great movie.
And I want to put out another performance was Sam Rockwell. I mean, he does this in every movie he's in pretty much where he steals the show. But I mean, he was so good in that role. And really, I mean, he was kind of like the anchor of that movie because I mean, he was, the human, like the most human character in that movie, I think. It really expressed, realistically what it would have been like to have to live through that. And I just loved his performance. That was one of my favorite parts of it.
Yeah, you're right. All right, Andrew, what is your number 4?
All right. Oh boy, I'm expecting I'm not going to expect a hold for this, but I'm hoping there's going to be one. It's Little Women.
I had it. You were in limbo there for a second. Little Women at 6.
And I don't have it on my list.
So go ahead, Andrew. I can't wait to hear you talk about this because I absolutely love this movie.
So, someone else on Letterboxd, I believe it was Paul Oyama, said that this movie was like the equivalent of a warm hug, and I don't think I could personally put it any better than he did. I think that the performances in this movie are so good from most people. I think that Greta Gerwig's direction of this movie and her writing on this for this script, it made a story that's so old, so fresh. And you just really connected with all of these characters. And you grow with them. You develop with them as they develop. I think this movie was just so masterfully crafted that it really rose high in my regards.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I had it at 6, Andrew, and I cannot say enough about. If you have brothers and sisters, and if you can't relate to the relationship, the arguing, the bickering, the trying to one up one another and stuff like that, and then trying to find, love in the parents and stuff like that, you can't. I mean, this really shows what a family dynamic is. And I'll tell you what, I love the location that it was set in, Concord, Massachusetts, in the Civil War and all this stuff. And then for the Saoirse Ronan character to kind of go and, like we're dealing with the Me Too movement and all that stuff right now. Well, they really put that in the forefront in this movie. And this is 200 years ago or 150 years ago or whatever it was. And she's like, I want the rights to my writing and I want to all this kind of stuff. And she stood her ground with the publisher and stuff like that. And I love that. And all the characters, I mean, Timothée Chalamet, Laura Dern, Meryl Streep are all fantastic in this. But like you said, it's a Little Women for a new generation, and updated. And I'll tell you what, it was a great version. I thought it was terrific.
Just real quick, I'm actually going to disagree about Meryl Streep. I thought she's the reason it's so low on my list. I did not care for her performance in this movie at all.
Okay.
But I respect it.
All right. That's fine. All right. So my number 4 was Andrew's number 5. But did you have...
Do you want me to say anything about Little Women?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's okay.
Here it comes.
Meryl Streep wasn't great in it. She was not the worst performance in this movie.
Oh no! Don't you dare!
The worst performance in this movie is Florence One Face Pugh. I don't think it's all her fault. I think part of the problem was that they had like an obvious adult at one, during the flashback scenes trying to play like a 12 or 13-year-old. I thought that was a terrible choice. and that kind of sucked me out of the movie. But I'm bad mouthed. I love this movie. It's really good. That was the one like really negative takeaway for me. But I thought it was great. She did a great job directing it. Saoirse Ronan is always fantastic. Laura Dern's really good in it. The supporting cast, Chris Cooper is great in it. What's his name? Tracy Letts, who plays the publisher. He doesn't have a big part, but I always enjoy watching him work. And it's a really great story. Like you said, Dan, it's a really good family story. And my other problem was some of the dialogue, like when they were being faithful to the book, you could tell because it sounded like they were reading from a 19th century novel. So I mean, there are a few little things that knocked it down a couple pegs for me, but it was still overall a fantastic movie.
Yeah. All right. So my number 5 was Andrew's number. My number 4 is Andrew's number 5. Did you have Marriage Story on your list, Kirk?
We'll talk about that in a minute. I did not.
Okay. All right. That's fine. All right. So I'm just going to talk about Marriage Story, then throw it to Andrew since it was his number 5. I'll tell you what. I'm a huge fan of Kramer versus Kramer. I just absolutely love Kramer versus Kramer. Marriage Story is Kramer versus Kramer for a new generation. And I'll tell you right now, the acting in this movie is so phenomenal. From Adam Driver to Scarlett Johansson to Laura Dern to Ray Liotta to Alan Alda, everybody in this movie gives their A game, puts on their A game. And I'll tell you what, that script is what helps elevate the acting. They got to have some of the best dialogue. And Noah Baumbach, obviously, you've heard this before. I'm not going to be the first person that says this. Took this from his own relationship with Jennifer Jason Leigh. And I'll tell you what, he did a fantastic job with this script and directing this movie because he got phenomenal work out of these people. And it really is an updated version of Kramer versus Kramer. You got the LA, you got the New York, and what would he have? The kid is in the middle. Same thing as Kramer versus Kramer. And I really love this movie. You don't have to have explosions and all kinds of laughs and all kinds of crazy stuff with special effects and all this stuff. You can have a good movie with a great script and great acting and still be one of the best films. So that's why I have Marriage Story at number 4. Andrew, take it away.
So this is probably the most honest movie of the entire year for me. Personal story time. My parents split when I was in college, and they told me, but I kind of already saw what was happening because. And as I'm watching this movie, all I can think of is how honest and real and just truly genuine the relationship, the way that these characters are written with each other, not just characters as their own, which are great on their own, but as each other, is so wonderful. And you mentioned Ray Liotta. Ray Liotta gives actually a really great performance. The first time I saw him, I was like, I think he's just hamming this up. I don't really like this. But then as the movie went along, I was like, oh, I totally get it. This movie is just absolutely wonderful. I love this movie.
Kirk?
Yeah, this is one, honestly, I whiffed on this, guys. I probably should have had this in my top 10. This is just one I overlooked. I love this movie. I was blown away, obviously, by the 2 lead performances, were just great. And just that story, this is, like Andrew said, it's a very honest story of divorce and just what it does to people and the people who are orbiting around it. Even the divorce attorneys, like the kind of people they have to be to do that job. And just like how it makes you like almost inhuman. And yeah, the 2 leads are great, but you brought up all the names. I mean, they could have just filled out the entire supporting actor and actress categories with people from this movie alone. Ray Liotta is great. I love Alan Alda in this movie. I love how fleshed out and real that character is. And you can just kind of see the life he's lived by the way he plays that part. That was such a well-written, just a small character, but just such a well-written one too. And Ray Liotta, I loved him. Laura Dern, I'm hoping she wins the Oscar because she's so good in it. But yeah, that's it's yeah. I love this movie. Like I said, if I would have, I was making a lot of. I had a short list, and I don't know how I overlooked Marriage Story, but it didn't make it. That's why it wasn't in the top 10. If I revise this, it probably will be in there because that's a great movie.
Can I just
say, this year was such a great year. I have easily 25 movies that could have been in my 10. That's how many movies I absolutely love. I mean, I have a list of like 50 this year that I absolutely loved. Andrew, what were you going to say?
I just wanted to say one more thing. We were talking about how good this script is. One of my favorite moments in the entirety of like 2019 film is during that fight scene when Adam Driver's character, I'm paraphrasing here, but at one point they're in the middle of that argument. He goes, "And you're winning."
Yeah.
And that it was like that moment that just like really like struck me. And it was that script is so good.
Yeah. And that's I mean, because if the script doesn't good, you don't get those performances. In my opinion, that movie just falls right on its face. And it had to be the script. And they worked on that script for a while and to get it to where, and then they could get those actors to read that dialogue, that really powerful dialogue. So that was my number 4. We're going back to Kirk with his number 3.
My number 3 is Avengers Endgame.
I do not have that on my list. Andrew, do you have that?
It just missed my honorable mentions.
Okay, yeah. I couldn't not have this on my list. I could not have it high. From a technical standpoint, there are a lot better films that came out this year that maybe should have been on the list. But I have to talk about what an achievement this was. The just wrapping up everything they had set up for the past 20 movies. And I mean, if you compare that to not Force Awakens, but Rise of Skywalker, which a lot of people weren't happy with how that wrapped things up. It just highlights what a great job and how much care and work went into Endgame, and the franchise as a whole. And I like Marvel movies, and I wouldn't say I'm burned out on them, but like I don't need more Marvel. If they said, "Hey, we're taking a 5-year break and you're not going to get more Marvel movies," I'd be fine with it. But this one is just there's so many great character moments that you don't expect in a comic book movie. There's just so many great moments and callbacks. And I mean, you may say they're a little fan servicey, but who cares? They're so great. That scene with Cap and right before the portals open where he's that wide shot where he's, just him versus you see the hordes coming against him. He's standing up against it. That was one of the most beautiful things I saw on a screen this year. The scene right before that, with just Thanos. And he's sitting there waiting, and the 3 of them come, and they have that upshot where you just see them kind of slowly surround him. It might be like a Kurosawa movie, like an old samurai movie or an old western. And there's so many different ways. I mean, the scene where they introduced Hawkeye back in, and just so many different ways the shot was made. This movie, there's so many different shots, things like that. Yeah, like I said, I mean, the movie has the time travel stuff is silly, and there's flaws, and there's holes. But as a movie going experience. I don't know if I had. I have a couple, obviously, but this was one of the best times I had in the theater all year.
Yeah, I had Avengers Endgame in my top 10 for the longest time, Kirk. It's not till like November that I had to knock it out, and I absolutely love that movie. I cannot imagine what they could have done better. I really couldn't have. I mean, to culminate 22 movies. And to culminate things in that way and have such arcs for all the characters and then still know that we're going to get more movies and more phases and all this kind of stuff in the future. I mean, I would say Kevin Feige is an absolute genius. He's the producer of the year. I mean, I think he should have been the producer of the year. I don't know who won producer of the year award or whatever, but if you're going to give 11 Oscars to The Lord of the Rings for Peter Jackson, you have got to give Kevin Feige something for doing what he did, for accomplishing what he did in this. And obviously, we know he had a lot of people helping him do it. But you hit the nail on the head. They can't even get 3 Star Wars movies right. This guy did 23 movies and got it to where it was, I mean, incredible. I mean, different franchises, different directors, people leaving, coming back, new actors having to take over people, yet they don't miss a beat. Only a couple movies, I would say, that I absolutely did not like in this entire 23 movies. That's not bad. That is not a bad ratio at all. And this is easily one of the greatest movies of the entire decade, let alone 2019. So I applaud you for having it on your list. I just went for a different grouping or different type of movie on my list. Andrew, you got any thoughts?
First thought is they did it. They absolutely were able to close out an entire saga of movies in a satisfying way for a large majority of the people who have donated so much time into that franchise. Honestly, this was like sitting at my number 10 for like a long time before it kind of slipped to like number 11 or number 12. But no, this movie, it's so great in its way of balancing so many different characters at once. The cinematography is in this movie, as Kirk said, it's really, really great. And I don't think enough people talk about the cinematography in this movie. And it's got some of the most satisfying moments of 2019. I really do love this movie a lot, and I wish I could have given it more, but I just happen to like these other movies a little bit more.
Yeah, same with me. I think I have that number 16 on my list. So,
and the one thing I'll say about it too is, you know, these movies could so easily be cash grabs. We saw Disney make a lot of cash grabs this year. You know, they put out junk and they made $1 billion, and they probably would have made $1 billion with, you know, without putting the effort in this. But I mean, just to see for a giant, and you know, let's face it, a lot of these franchises are just soulless money making machines. When you get down to the bare bones, but the fact they still put so much tender, loving care into this, and they respect the audience enough to put the work in, and the directors and the producers and the actors all care. That's something special. You don't see that in this day and age too much.
And it beat Avatar.
Yep, exactly. Thank
I'm
God.
happy about that. I'm happy about that.
No, I'm ecstatic about that.
I like the Hurt Locker that year, so I was glad to see the Hurt Locker win. All right, so going to Andrew's number 3 now.
All right, my number 3 is the movie that I was actually one of the most excited about this year, and I'm so glad that it was as good as it was, and that's Knives Out.
All right, I do not have it on my list. Kirk had, I think, at number 10 or 8.
Yeah, that was my 10.
Yeah. Go ahead, Andrew.
So I'm so glad that someone did this to me ahead of time. Someone told me that after like the first teaser trailer for this movie came out, someone told me, don't watch any of the other trailers. Don't go in expecting anything. Don't go in being like, oh, this is how the movie is going to work out. And I'm so glad that they told me that, because going into this movie and not really expecting how the story is going to go was the best way of going in for me, because there are so many twists and turns in this movie that are so masterfully played out. I think this is probably my favorite original script this year. I loved the characters. Ana de Armas, honestly, if this movie doesn't like jumpstart her career, I don't know what we're doing anymore. And I am so glad that thick Kentucky accent was not as distracting as I was assuming it was going to be. Daniel Craig, this is the kind of performance that Daniel Craig really thrives in, these character roles. And that climactic scene towards the end, I'm not going to spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen it yet, because I highly recommend this movie. It's so scary, dramatic, and funny all at the same time. Basically, if you're looking for a donut hole inside a donut hole, this is the movie for you.
Yeah, Kirk, go ahead. You had it at 10, so
Yeah,
you liked it.
I mean, this was just. I'm usually not a huge fan of whodunits. Like the procedural stuff does do for me. But yeah, there's so many great characters in this movie. That's what I really loved about it. And like Andrew said, I won't spoil anything, but it's nothing what you expect. The stories, you go in and whatever you're expecting is demolished within the first 15 minutes, and it becomes completely something different that you're not expecting. It's like, okay, and so it keeps you guessing because this is where Rian Johnson does a good job of supplanting your expectations. But he, it just really just, I know you're like, well, this is what the movie's going to be. Okay, let's go. And you just go for this ride. And like Andrew said, Daniel Craig is great in this. I'm not a big fan of him as Bond. I think this is the career he should have, doing these kind of roles and these kind of movies, because this is where he is great playing these kind of characters. And the thing that's really cool about it, it's a very subtly political movie. And I'm burnt out on politics. I'm sick of politics, and whatever angle you're coming from, if you shove your message down my throat, I'm going to tap out. And this movie does a great job of being very political, but in a very subtle way and a very clever way. And to the point where you don't even realize it. So you're like, oh yeah. So that I give it points for that too. Where it gets the message it wants to get across, but it doesn't force feed you. It doesn't it weaves into the story very well.
No, you hit the nail on the head, Kirk. There. I'll tell you what. I just want to say, I what Andrew said about the script. I'll tell you right now. I was glad to see this get a best original script nomination for the Oscars, because I really believe this script is really solid, and it really you'd be hard pressed to find holes in this plot, in this story, and that's what makes a great script. And this, you could easily look, you could easily poke holes in some of these type of mystery movies, but this one is really hard to poke holes in. You really can't. And Andrew, you mentioned the voice of Daniel Craig. I'll tell you what now, his voice, I loved him in Logan Lucky, where he was playing a Southern guy, but he takes it to the next level in this. And Kirk, I actually do like Daniel Craig in the Bond movies. But if you haven't seen Daniel Craig in Layer Cake, I'm telling you, folks, that is the movie to see Daniel Craig. You're like, oh, okay. Yeah, that's what made Daniel Craig an actor, because that movie, he's fantastic, and that's his coming out party. But, yeah, this is the kind of movie I want from Rian Johnson, not that crap called Star Wars The Last Jedi.
Oh, my God. Am I the only person who likes that movie?
Unfortunately, no.
Yeah, there's more people that like it, Andrew. I just figured I'd get that jab in there. But okay, so but yeah, I really, this is like 14, 15 on my list too. There's so many great movies this year.
It was hard. It was hard to make.
All right, my number 3. All right, brace yourselves, boys. And okay, spoiler alert, my list came out a month ago. I put my list out on multiple platforms a month ago and multiple websites. So if you saw my list, you know what my number 3 is. Maybe you guys had a little bit of insight. I talked to you. I've been struggling a little bit over the last 6 months or so, and a movie that really hit home for me with some of the problems I've been dealing with. I have migraine headaches, and I have some anxieties and some things like that I don't let show. A lot of people don't see those things when you look at me and you talk to me. You don't see some of the issues that I have. And a movie that really resonated with me was The Joker. Do either of you have that on your list?
No.
And the character of Arthur Fleck, this guy, he just wants to do his job, go out, be a clown. These guys pick on him and hit him over the head with the sign that he's doing. And then his coworkers are picking on him and plant a gun on him, and then he gets in trouble because the gun drops, and then he gets fired because some jackass wanted to get him in trouble at work, and he goes to a kid's party and has a gun on him accidentally, and stuff like that. I've had difficulties at jobs and with bosses and stuff like that, and I really resonate with the character of Arthur Fleck. That being said, obviously we see on the news the things that people are doing, all the different things. I'm not going to get into all the different things. I live here in Orlando. We had the Pulse nightclub shooting. So that's just one example. I know that really turns a lot of people off to the extent of what Arthur Fleck did in the movie, based off of a giant mob kind of egging him on and kind of doing all this kinds of stuff. And there was more people that kind of followed him and wanted to be like him. And there was a lot of people that felt the same way that he did. And I think that's why this movie made $1 billion. I feel like there's a lot of people out there that have anxieties, that have headaches, that have depression, that are dealing with a lot of problems. And one of the issues in this country is our medical system. And so many people are slipping through the cracks in our medical, and when it comes to hospitals and that sort of stuff. And I know it's a comic book movie. It's based off of a character called the Joker, but it really resonated with a lot of people, and it resonated with me. And I think Joaquin Phoenix is long overdue for an Academy Award, and I'm glad he's going to win it for Arthur Fleck and the Joker. And I think Todd Phillips did a phenomenal job. Even Robert De Niro, I liked him. He had the opposite role he had in King of Comedy. And if you do like Taxi Driver and King of Comedy, this has a lot of similarities to both of those films. A lot of homages to Martin Scorsese films, which I'm a huge Martin Scorsese fan. If you don't know me by now, you don't know that I love. So, Kirk, if you have any thoughts on Joker.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. This probably comes in somewhere in my top 15. And yeah, like you said, like the mental health aspect was a big part of it. And that was also kind of my problem with it it was hard for me to separate as a Joker movie. I felt by the end of the story, like we were too connected to the Joker. And I feel like I don't want to spoil anything for maybe people who haven't seen it, but there are a few things that should have happened in that movie that the Joker would have done that he didn't. And I think he didn't do it, so we would stay on his side. And I think by the end of that movie, we shouldn't have been on his side. And that was kind of the what made it, like I said, drop down a couple pegs for me. The other thing is I feel like they really shoved in the Batman stuff. When I first saw this movie, I was like, man, they have sucked. Like when I saw the trailers, I should say, they sucked all the comic book out of this, and they're just going to like gritty crime drama, like you said, 70s Scorsese style crime drama. And I love that. And so much of it's like that. But every once in a while, you get Thomas Wayne, you get the little Bruce Wayne cameo, and even like the ending where you see like how it connects to the Batman story, just way too much. Like that felt like studio notes to me. Like, oh, we got to shoehorn Batman in here. So that kind of sucked me out a little bit as well. But again, overall, like you said, the performance is fantastic, and it's a really good movie.
Andrew?
I really like this movie. I think that they did a good job of balancing tension in a lot of parts. The reason it slipped so low on my list, because when I walked out of the movie, I was like, this was great. But the more I thought about it, it's like, the one thing that really hurt for me is the one twist that they try to pull with Zazie Beetz' character. I just wasn't buying it, which kind of really hurt the movie for me overall. But other than that, no, I think it is a really good movie. I think Joaquin Phoenix does a great job. I think that one scene towards the end, what you guys know exactly what it is, but I'm not going to spoil it for anyone, is so tense in its buildup, and then once the payoff happens, it's a weird balance of relief and heightened anxiety. And I think that Todd Phillips did a really good job directing scenes like that. It's just a few things, including the one I talked about earlier, that really held it back from me.
All right, so we are back to Kirk with his number 2, I believe, Kirk?
Yeah, this is my number 2. My 1 and 2 were pretty much locked in throughout the year as soon as I had seen them. The rest of my list was really hard to make. But these two I knew were going to probably stand the test of the year and make it to the top, and they definitely did. My number 2 is a Japanese movie called One Cut of the Dead. And this is actually released in Japan in 2017, but it's a U.S. release for 2019. So, I talked to Dan, and he cleared that for me. So this is a movie, like I said before about another movie, where you go in and you see something you haven't seen before. This movie does something I have never seen before. It's a zombie movie. The first, I think, 30, 35 minutes of the movie are all one uninterrupted shot. And I believe it's a true one shot. There's no camera tricks or anything. It's just one continuous shot for 35 minutes. And it's a zombie movie. The story is they are filming a zombie movie in this old, abandoned World War II facility, and real zombies start to attack. And like I said, it's all one shot. And I don't want to tell you anything else beyond I'll tell you this: 35 minutes in, the credits roll, and then you get the rest of the movie. And I'm not going to tell you anything else about it beyond that because I don't want to spoil it, because the experience of watching this movie and what this movie does is so great. If I have to recommend one movie to watch from this year, it's this one. I think it's available on Shudder if you do Shudder streaming. But if you get a chance, even if you don't like zombie movies, if you're burned out on zombies, I totally understand. But you want to watch this movie. Like I said, I can't tell you anything more about it because it's so unique what they do, and if I tell you anything, it's going to spoil the whole story and the trick to it. But definitely, I cannot recommend this enough. Go out and find this movie and watch it. It's amazing.
Yeah, Kirk. I mean, I literally searched everywhere for that movie during 2019. I could not find it. I was really upset. I could not find that movie to see it, and I have little art house cinemas here, and one Regal that plays all indie movies and documentaries and foreign films and you name it. Yeah. And they didn't even have it. I'm like, what the hell? So I was really happy when you said that. Yeah. But I was upset because I haven't seen the movie yet, and I really wanted to see it. I
got this. I only got to see it because one of the smaller theaters around here who does movies like this had a special for Halloween, so I got to see it. But yeah, hopefully it gets bigger and more popular and it becomes more accessible because people really should be watching this movie. It's great.
Andrew, have you seen it, or do you have any thoughts on it?
I haven't seen it.
Okay.
That's not that big a deal. I mean, most people haven't.
All right, so, Andrew, what is your number 2?
My number 2 is also a foreign film, but it's the foreign film everyone's expecting me to talk about. This is the movie that I would arguably say is technically the best movie of the year, even though for me it's technically my second favorite, and that's Parasite.
Kirk, you have that at number 1?
No, I had that at my 6.
Oh, you did? Okay, I forgot. Yeah, I got it at number 5. So go ahead, Andrew.
This movie, I think, is brilliant. I think this is Bong Joon-ho's magnum opus. I think that the writing of this film is fantastic. The cinematography, the direction, the acting, which is not getting enough credit for some characters, actors. It grabs you by the wrist within the first 10 minutes and it never lets go. The way that it slowly builds tension like a ladder as the movie's going along is fantastic. I think that there's one particular scene where I won't spoil too much about it, but the characters are hiding some of the characters are hiding under a table, and your heart's pounding. And the way it's actually able to balance this tension with comedy that comes in at unexpected moments, but works so brilliantly in its timing. And honestly, it's hard for me to describe how much I love this movie without going into too many things that I would consider spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen it. So if you haven't seen this movie, watch it. I will say that I think the best scene of the year takes place in a basement, but that's all I will say.
Yeah, I had Parasite at number 5. Kirk had it at number 6. We both, obviously all three of us love Parasite. Bong Joon-ho, I've been a fan of his, The Host, Okja,
Snowpiercer.
Snowpiercer. I've been watching his movies for years now, and he really has a style of his own that really not a lot of people have that style. And then he takes the style and he throws it out the window and he does something completely different than his own style in this house that they built from scratch. The house that's in this movie is they built the house. It didn't exist before this movie.
And I want that house.
Gorgeous house. You're like, I want to live in that house. And like you said, the acting, it's about the haves and the have-nots. You know, I've been in that camp of the have-nots my entire life. So I really could resonate with the have-not, the family of the have-nots. And they wanted to be the family, wanted to be part of the family with the haves. One by one, they implemented themselves into this family's life. And it was really fascinating how that happened. And then you think, okay, that's what the story is. Nope. There's a crazy twist that you're like, what the heck is this? And you're just mind blown. And that's Bong Joon-ho. And like you said, the performances are great. The script is great. The acting is great. It's easily one of the best 2-3 movies of the year. And it should be nominated for a lot of Oscars and win. I just hate to see it. I would say maybe last year if this came out, this would have won the Oscar.
Oh, I'm hoping it still does.
Well, it could still win. But I think it has so much more competition this year than it would have had last year. But that's a whole nother ball of wax. We won't get into that right now. But I really did enjoy Parasite. Kirk?
Yeah, I had it at number 6. And the thing that struck me about this movie is how genreless it is. Like, you can't pin down what this movie is. I've seen it classified as a horror movie. It's, you call it a comedy, a drama, a thriller, whatever. There's so much good on. Like you said, he's not afraid to just throw that in. He's not tied down to any one style or genre. It's just whatever story he wants to tell. And it's such a great story. Like you said, just that idea of, have and have nots upstairs, downstairs, literally, which, has been told so many ways before, but never like this. And like I said, you just connect with the characters. The rich people aren't bad people. They're not bad. They're not the bad guys. They're not. There's like these like ominous villains, which would be the easy way to present them. They're just there doing their thing, and the people coming in, the family coming in. I mean, you see why they're doing it too. So you kind of can understand and sympathize with everybody. And just so many, like you said, cool twists and turns. So many great scenes. So many great memorable moments. The one thing honestly, I wish I could have won in this movie with zero hype. Because you've been hearing about this movie all year. Even I think into last year, it was on the festival circuit and everybody was hyping it up. And I think the day I went and saw it was the day it took over number 1 from Godfather on Letterboxd. So I think my expectations were so sky high that I couldn't fully enjoy it and immerse myself. I'm probably gonna have to rewatch it a couple times to get the most out of it. But yeah, it's definitely a top 10 movie of the year.
Yeah, absolutely agree. All right, my number 2, and just say, hold on, if it's not your number 2, if it's obviously because it would be somebody's number 1 if that's the case. So, and we will talk about when we get to that point. But technically, once I say it, we'll work it out here. My number 2 is a little film from Mr. Sam Mendes called 1917. Does anybody have that on their list?
No.
Okay.
This is what I was talking about earlier when I rewatched a movie.
Okay, so nobody has 1917, so that means I get to talk about 1917, which I'm glad about because I'll tell you what, oh my God, I love this movie. One of the most gorgeous. This is a movie about World War I. This is an ugly. Yeah, all war is ugly. This was an ugly war. This movie is so freaking gorgeous. The cinematography is so breathtaking by Roger Deakins. He's probably going to win his second Oscar. He should have had about 6 by now. That's a whole nother ball of wax. We'll get into it later on. But it's basically a story about these 2 privates, ensigns, or whatever you want to call them, and they have to go on this mission. And they have to basically go and save potentially potential save 1,600 people. They could on this mission. If their mission doesn't succeed, 1,600 people could die. That's the mission that they are on. And one of them is one of the brothers of one of the guys. His brother could die if they don't go on this mission. And it's one of the great things you probably heard about this is it's a single shot. Well, they film it like it's a single shot where these two guys start their mission and the camera basically follows them. And if they're going forward, sometimes they're following the cameras. They're following the cameras sometimes, and sometimes the camera's following them. But it is so seamless. You don't know. And it's a maze. It's like a maze that these guys go throughout the film to get to where they need to get to and to go to the places they need to go. And I'll tell you what, some of the best camera work I have ever seen. I mean, it's Birdman. No, this is better than Birdman. You can say whatever you want about Birdman. I wasn't the biggest fan of Birdman. I won't get into that right now. But I honestly believe that this shot, how they seamlessly made this shot, is better than what they did. The first 35 minutes of this movie are incredible. You're just so glued. And I recommend the biggest possible screen with the best surround sound to see this movie in, to get the full brunt of what this movie Sam Mendes was going through. And there are some great cameos. You're like, oh, I know that guy. Oh, I know that person. Oh, I know that. And they're littered throughout the movie. And I'm not going to say who they are in case people haven't seen the movie. But it's basically these two unknown actors. Actually, one of them was in another movie that my number 10 movie, Blinded by the Light. Dean Charles Chapman. He's in Blinded by the Light as well. And George McKay. I really, really enjoyed this movie. I was blown away by this movie, and it's probably going to win the Academy Award for Best Picture and Best Director, more than likely. It could, Parasite could steal it. Who knows? But I cannot say enough about 1917. One of the best war movies I've ever seen. Kirk, you got any thoughts on 1917?
Yeah, just saw this one a couple weeks ago. I really liked it. Again, this is another place where I think expectations kind of interfered with my enjoyment of the movie. You watch a trailer and you see the scene where he's running along with the explosions blowing up, and you see the plane crash. And I was expecting more of that. And like when I settled in and I realized, okay, this is going to be a different movie than I expected, I started enjoying it more. But I think it's, again, this is the one we're going to have to rewatch it and go back and revisit to really get the full experience of it. I love how, like you said, how gritty and ugly they make the war. Those first couple scenes where they're coming out of the trenches and just what they see and what they, have to literally travel through is really just gut-wrenching. And again, that keeping that, not letting you look away of all these horrors with that one shot was just a brilliant way to do it, because you're forced to just continue to, just what these soldiers went through, just continue to look at it and look at it and deal with it and face it. And that was a great way to do it. So yeah, I mean, again, if I go back and rewatch this one or two times, this may crack my top 10 for the year, but just right now it's not there yet.
Now, Andrew, you have something to say about this? You didn't see it or something?
No. I've seen it twice. And first of all, you better hope that Jake Marangoni doesn't come after you for your Birdman comment. But you're not scared of Jake. But so I saw this movie twice now. The first time I saw it, it actually was sitting at my number 10. And then I saw it again. And I still really like this movie a lot. Unfortunately, some of the cameos kind of distracted me. And I thought that there were really like some of the best moments of 2019. But for some reason, just as a whole, it kind of slipped for me. But I still think this is a really, really good movie. And I really like this movie a lot.
All right. So now we're going on to everybody's number one. Kirk, take it away.
Okay, my number one, if you've heard me talk at all this year, it's going to be no surprise. This is my number one by a mile. It is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Don't cite me, Andrew. This is a movie. Quentin Tarantino famously talks about how directing is an old man's or young man's game, and how the older directors they become not as good directors. This movie completely blows that theory out of the water. This movie is so vibrant and full of life. It feels like it's made by a yet much younger director, somebody fresh coming into the scene. It feels like a new statement movie that a young director would make. So much of this movie, just the look and feel of this movie. I love the fact that the time period is a character. The city is a character. Everything about this, just the way it's shot, the sound, the cars, the music, just those the ubiquitous, commercial radio and TV commercials for TV shows and movies playing on the ground with that da 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 da, and announcing all the TV shows. Just there, I mean, I was captivated by this movie from start to finish. I did not want to look away. I did not, I was just enraptured by this film. The scene where Brad Pitt drives from Leo's house to his house, and you got the sound of his car and he's just driving. You got the city in the background. You got that great crane shot going over the drive-in. That was one of my favorite scenes of the year. People told me going in oh, it's good, but you're going to get bored. I was like, I'm sitting there watching the movie. I'm like, oh man, I'm really loving this. I don't want to get bored. And I never did. I just sit there. I love this. This is fantastic. And it was over. It's 2.5 hours and it felt like 90 minutes to me. I could have sat there for another 45 minutes and watched more of that movie. Everything about this is great. I love it so much. And this without a doubt. I mean, this is probably my number 3 Tarantino now, and it may work its way up. This is a great movie.
Andrew, you got any thoughts on Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
I've got a lot of thoughts about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Okay, don't get me wrong. I like this movie. I think this is a good movie, but I was there were some moments that took me off guard and I really liked, and then there were some moments that I kind of saw coming. I kind of guessed the climactic ending, not to the point that it was, but I kind of was like, this is going to happen, isn't it? And it did. And once again, not to say that this is a bad movie, but I personally don't think it's that great. I think it's really good. I personally don't think it's great.
I actually agree with Andrew. I don't think it's a bad movie. I just don't think it's great. I think, first of all, some of the scenes that Kirk, what you liked about it, Kirk, are some of the things that I didn't like about it. And Brad Pitt just driving his car. I mean, just wasting time. The whole Spawn Ranch, you think, okay, that's going to go somewhere. It goes nowhere. I like Leo. I liked Al Pacino in it. I liked what I give Tarantino credit for trying to do something that meant something to him. This meant something to him. This whole aesthetic of LA, the signs, the Cinerama Dome, all the different places, the clothes, the cars, the streets of LA, because he grew up here. He wanted to do a love letter basically to when he was growing up. And then this whole Sharon Tate thing happened around that same time. So he wanted to, if you know Tarantino, he likes to do revisionist history, with Glorious Bastards, Django Unchained, and now with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I think it works in Django and it works in Glorious Bastards. I don't think it works in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And I don't hate this movie. There's a lot of good things to like about it. I just didn't love it as much as you did, Kirk. So there's that. So
I will say just real quick, my favorite scene of the movie is actually Brad Pitt driving in his car.
All right, there you go. All right, so we're going to Andrew for Andrew's number 1 now.
Okay, so this movie hit me very personally because a lot of this movie takes place where I'm from. So you can call your hometown bias all you want. I don't care. But my favorite movie of 2019 was The Irishman. I love Martin Scorsese. Do I think that he's always on his game? No, not always, but for a majority of the time he is. But this might be in my top 2 of the Scorsese films that I've seen, at least. I love how the ending of this movie is exactly what ties everything together into a great film for me. The ending of this movie is when you find out that this entire story, the reason behind this story, it's a morality tale. You see this guy who has been behind a lot of killings, a lot of like even some that we don't have exact proof of, but we have the word of. And then at the end, you find out that everything kind of crumbles around him at the end. And all the people, and you realize that he's mortal too, and he's also going to die. And the way that this story, Steve Zaillian, I think, did a phenomenal job with this script, being able to do that in the way that he did, especially in the scene where he's picking out. I don't want to spoil it. Oh yeah. And the performances are all great, and I think that Joe Pesci is not getting enough attention for his role. Yes, he got the Oscar nomination. I think that he should win. I think Joe Pesci in this movie is my favorite performance of 2019 because it's so subtle and so understated, but there's a menace behind it that is absolutely terrifying. Plus, I lived around Philadelphia, and I still work in Philadelphia, and I know all of these locations, and it really hit home for me because of that. And yeah, I'm a Philadelphia shill. All right, bye.
Hey, there's no shame in that.
A little bit of shame in that.
Kirk, how many times have you talked about a movie that Pittsburgh's in?
I'm sure his favorite of the Dark Knight trilogy is Rise.
Yeah.
It's not true.
No, I'm joking. Yeah. My number one is The Irishman as well, Andrew.
Yeah.
If anybody, look, everybody knows this. I'm not hiding the fact I'm a huge Martin Scorsese fan. He is my favorite director. Robert De Niro is my favorite actor. Al Pacino is my second favorite actor. So you put those three in a movie together. Joe Pesci is phenomenal. What I cannot say enough about agree with what you said about Joe Pesci. He is so different than everything he did. And that's the attraction for the Joe Pesci character in this movie. You know, he's so laid back and so different, yet so powerful. You know, he's got that power in him, yet he's so, like, he keeps it on the down low. He keeps it kind of really, the word, I can't think of the word I want to say right now. But Robert De Niro, I mean, I watch him paint houses. I watch him do carpentry. I watch him clean toilets. That's how much I love Robert De Niro. Al Pacino, he could be outside cutting my lawn or weed whacking. I watch him do that. I don't care. These two guys together with Joe Pesci, I mean, it's incredible. I mean, I've watched this movie at least 3 times already. And I'll tell you what, it stands up on Netflix. It stands up on Netflix. I saw it in a movie theater, but it stands up on Netflix, especially you got a nice 42, 55, 70-inch TV. I'll tell you what, man, this movie looks gorgeous on a nice TV on Netflix if you got it. Yeah, Steve Zaillian, wow, what a great job adapting this book. So many great, Ray Romano, Harvey Keitel, Stephen Graham.
Anna Paquin, who does not get enough credit she deserves for this.
People, I don't even want to get into it, but people just don't understand why she was in this movie. She wanted to be in the movie, people. It wasn't like, oh, he gave her the role because he couldn't find anybody else. She wanted to be that character. She knew what the character was that she chose to do. So stop. Oh, Anna Paquin. No, stop it. Just stop it.
Yeah, person who knows I'm talking to them.
She wanted to work with Scorsese and De Niro and Pacino and those guys. She wanted. I don't blame her. I would want to work with those guys too if I was her. She's an Oscar-winning actress. She wants to work with the best. That's what actresses and actors do. They want to work with the best. And in this case, you got a lot of the best in there for Anna Paquin. And so I just think Scorsese could only make this movie at this time in his career.
Agreed.
This is like the Silence of gangster movies, where he could only make Silence when he made it, and now he makes The Irishman based on the book I Heard You Paint Houses, but it's basically the Silence of gangster movies. It's so understated and so kind of, it doesn't just kind of blow you away, but I love the fact that it takes its time, it gets to the things it needs to get to. And I'll tell you right now, that 3.5 hours goes by like that. It was like, felt like an hour and a half to me. It went by so fast. And I've seen it multiple times, and it always goes by fast. It never takes its time to go by for me, even though we know it's 3.5 hours. So I love everything about it. It's my number one film of the year, and I'm not ashamed to say that. Kirk, I know you had it at number 10 or 8 or something.
No, it actually wasn't my top 10. It was on my short list. Probably it's probably an 11 or 12.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I really like this movie. First thing I'll talk about, I want to address the Anna Paquin thing, because my number one movie got very similar criticism for it with Margot Robbie and the Sharon Tate character. People don't realize with both characters, I'll focus on Anna Paquin, what she represents in that movie. I mean, she's his conscience in that movie. And it's kind of frustrated out because it's like, you have a woman actress and she doesn't get the requisite amount of lines to make people happy, so it's a giant problem. It's like, no, she is in that story. She serves a very specific reason, same as Sharon Tate did. And I'd argue Sharon Tate's the most important character in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And Anna Paquin is crucial in this story, where the point she comes in the movie, the point in his life where he has to looking at what he's doing and thinking about that. She's that mirror that's held up to him that he has to face and he can't look away from. So that was absolutely crucial to have that character. And, sure, you didn't need Anna Paquin, but like you said, Dan, she definitely wanted to be there. Overall, great movie. Like Andrew said, it is a morality tale, and nobody does a better job than Scorsese of at the same time glorifying crime and also showing you how awful it is at the exact same time. That's what he does, and he does it beautifully in this movie. The performances, Pacino's great, Pesci's great. Al Pacino, man, that guy, he's in his 80s now. He's still got it. It's like the 70s. That guy still throws himself in every role, and it's such a pleasure to watch him act, to watch him become a character and see what he does with it. And I loved it so much, and it wasn't any different in this movie. His portrayal of Jimmy Hoffa and just the drive he had and his lack of willingness to back down, and the result of that, no matter what happened, was just so great. So yeah, like I said, I actually watched this. I had to split it up. I didn't get to watch the full. So I don't know what it feels like at 3.5 hours. But I feel the same as you, Dan. It didn't feel that long. Like, it felt very almost episodic to me. The only downside would be some of the de-aging didn't work great, especially with physicality. That scene where he's stomping the grocer, and I'm like, man, it's not 1990 anymore. You can make him look as old as young as you want, but when he's throwing those soft stomps, it's like, man, that's Billy Batts would have been okay taking those stomps, because that's pretty weak. So.
And I will tell you, there is interviews. Go looking for interviews on YouTube. There are interviews talking with Martin Scorsese about that, and he had this whole thing with like the DP of production or whatever. He was like, hey, could you talk to these guys about maybe when they do a second take or whatever, could they act a little bit younger? Could they act? And he was like, no, I'm not going to tell him to go act 40. You go tell him to act 40. And so he kind of had to be very subtle about it. And he talked to him, hey, Al, could you just, because there was the scene where he gets up from the chair and he kind of is not getting up from the chair as fast as they would like him to get up. And hey, could you get up? And so they do the second take or whatever. And he said, all right, that was me getting up at 50. I know what you're saying, and the de-aging really, when you first start watching it, it looks a little wonky, but as the movie goes on, especially at the
I agree with it. Yeah.
Oh my God, you can't even tell it's de-aging at the end.
Yeah, the gas station scene is that's That's the de-aging at its worst, but it's also the first time you see it. So once you get past that, it gets so much better.
Yeah. So I mean,
And I'd say this too about Scorsese in general. He took a lot of flack this year over his, the Marvel stuff. And I'm on record, like, I don't necessarily disagree with anything he said. I think he made some really good points. But the fact that the guy, everybody's like, oh, he's this old curmudgeon. I mean, look what he's doing. He's partnering with Netflix. He's doing the de-aging of technology. He's still on the cusp of what's going on. So the guy knows what he's doing. He knows what he's talking about.
Look, he did 3D with Hugo, and I'm telling you right now, do yourselves a favor. Watch Hugo in 3D. Get a version of it in 3D. It is magnificent to see that movie. The depth of the 3D in the train station and where the camera goes in that movie. This guy's up there in age and he's doing 3D movies. Well, did you have something else you wanted to say, Kirk?
No, I'm sorry. I was talking to somebody over the camera. Sorry.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. Yeah.
All right. So just go, Kirk, go from 10 to 1. Run down your list 10 to 1.
Yeah. Special mention to Marriage Story because it probably should have made the list, but I overlooked it. 10 was Knives Out. 9 was The Lighthouse. 8 was The Irishman. 7 was The Two Popes. Real quick, 2 of the best performances I saw this year. Hopkins got nominated, right? He definitely deserves to win. I think Jonathan Pryce should have been nominated too. That was fantastic.
No, I think they both got nominated.
Yeah,
they did.
Yeah,
okay,
got nomination. Yeah,
Oscars,
Heath Edgerton.
Oscars for everybody.
Kurt's handing them out. He's hand delivering them.
My number 6 is Parasite. Number 5, Dr. Sleep. Number 4, Jojo Rabbit. Number 3, Endgame. Number 2, One Cut of the Dead. And number 1, Once Upon a Time in Mexico.
Hollywood.
Or Hollywood, yeah. Did I say Mexico? Yeah. Once Upon a Time in the West. What is that?
Once Upon a Time in America, everyone.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, yeah.
All right, got you. We got you. We knew what you were talking about. Andrew, 10 through 1.
All right, my number 10 was Booksmart. My number 9 was Jojo Rabbit. My number 8 was A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. My number 7 was... I knew you were going to do that. My number 7 was Uncut Gems. My number 6 was Rocket Man. My number 5 was Marriage Story. Number 4 was Little Women. Number 3 was Knives Out. Number 2 was Parasite. Number 1, The Irishman.
All right. My number 10 is Blinded by the Light. My number 9, Bombshell. My number 8, Ford v Ferrari. My number 7, Rocket Man. Number 6, Little Women. Number 5, Parasite. Number 4, Marriage Story. Number 3, Joker. Number 2, 1917. And number 1, The Irishman. All right, Kirk, where can you be found?
Find me on Letterboxd, Kirk Kolkowski or Kirk Cowell, something like that. I always forget my name is, but track me down on Letterboxd. That's the best place to talk about movies with me. Also, all the Fan League stuff. Everywhere Dan's at, I'm probably somewhere in the background too.
Andrew?
You cannot find me on Instagram. You cannot find me on Twitter, but you can find me on Letterboxd under Andrew Barr as one word with the A in Andrew and the B in Barr capitalized. You can find me on the Fan Leagues, Multiplex, Miscellaneous coming up, and with Full Metal. And you can find me in the background of Creed 2.
Okay. And you can find me at Dan Skip Allen on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest. Or if you want to read anything that I have written, I wrote a lot of articles for a website called cinesportstalk.com. That's cinesporttalk.com. I wrote about sports and movies. I write for another website called Disappointment Media as well. And obviously every week you can look for my show, The Top 5 Weekly. I posted in Full Metal. I posted in on Cinesports Talk website. I posted on my Instagram. I posted on my Facebook. So if you're watching this, you want to go back and watch previous episodes. They're all available on a bunch of different places, so you can go look for them. YouTube as well. So for Kirk and Andrew, this has been a special episode of the Top 5 Weekly, where we got to talk about the best movies of 2019. Everybody have a good day.
Bye.